So I finally finished Mass Effect Andromeda and I have a lot to talk about. So without further ado, I'm just gonna start with the bad things because there are a lot of them. I will be ranting about some things, but I want to make it known that I'm a huge fan of the Mass Effect series as a whole. I'm kind of happy that they moved away from Commander Shepard. While I did love him and I thought that the game worked really well with him, it feels like his story is already told, and I kind of like the new characters. There are a lot of improvements here, but also a lot of things that seem to be stagnating and never improving. So I will address those two. One of the first things I want to talk about is the fact that while you are, this time you're a Pathfinder, so that's a different title, but it's essentially some kind of a big shot, a person with a lot of power to decide things, a person who gets to do all kinds of wet work for everyone apparently. You will notice that unfortunately, even as the Pathfinder, you still gotta walk around to everyone. So somebody who's a nobody wants to talk to you, well guess what? You gotta go to him. They're not gonna come to you. They're not gonna call you. They're gonna be, even the people who are your subordinates on your own ship, they're gonna send you an email. Hey, I got this favor I need to ask you. Can you come to me? And I find it very strange because you are, as a Pathfinder, you make extremely important decisions. You often ignore the highest people in power of this new government, let's call it that way, that is established. So you have a lot of decisive power. You don't give much of a damn, and everyone's basically kissing your ass unless they want to tell you something or anything like that. Then you actually gotta go there. And you would wonder why I'm complaining about this, but oftentimes this involves a lot of loading screens. This is the game's biggest problem. From the start I want to address it. You will be wasting so much time with these goddamn loading screens, whether they're obvious open ones where you see that the game is loading and you see the loading animation, or there are hidden ones where you just, have to open a door and the bar fills up really slowly for opening of the doors and stuff. It's always a loading screen, whether it's hidden or not. And the game is segmented in such a way that you'll constantly be facing them. To get from A to B, you often have up to 5-6 loading screens. I'm not even kidding you. I'm going to give you more examples later on. So if somebody tells you come to me, that usually means alright, get on the move and wait for several loading screens on the way as well. And for example, people on your ship, they don't stand where they're supposed to be. So you might as well have to look around through the ship. It's not a big ship, but it has two levels, an upper and a lower deck. And if you want to go from one to the other, well, there's something of a loading screen. It's not a real one, but either you wait for an elevator and take it, or you gotta go down a ladder, and that is also an animation which takes time. It's all a hidden loading screen. So that's something that pisses me off, and it doesn't make much sense in terms of the lore of the game. They should be coming to me, especially when they want to ask me for favors and stuff, but no. They're like, here's an email. Hey, come to me, I need to ask you something, boss, Anyway, another thing that I don't like so much and that I found weird, but this is, interpret it however you want. I know the internet's been on fire with this as well, but most female characters in this game are quite unattractive. Even the female character that you can play as, Sarah, she's not a very attractive woman. I mean, I've actually seen the model which they took as an example, because they actually took real models for the male and the female, and they created these characters based on these models. And that model is a beautiful woman. Sarah looks almost nothing like her. She just resembles her. And this is a thing with BioWare. You can never be sure why, because they're so PC nowadays. They're trying to kiss everyone's ass. I'm starting to really think that they're trying to appeal to everyone and intentionally not making the characters too hot. Now I understand that they don't have to be the hottest babes out there. There are actually, for example, on your ship you have one attractive female, and that's I think she's some kind of a scientist. Her name is Suvi. She's sitting right at the front of the ship, and I thought first she's a coordinator of some sorts, but apparently she's just a scientist. She has a very curious and nice Irish accent. Oh no, she's a ginger, unfortunately. But other than that, she's made kind of attractive. I find her pretty attractive, but unfortunately, they made her lesbian. So if you want to make out with her as a dude, which probably most of us will want to do, because straight males will be a lot more playing the game than homosexual females. I'm just gonna go out on a whim and guess that, but no, you can't. She's lesbian, and that's it. So I tried flirting with her on the ship for a while, but gave it up. It's just not happening. but I'm gonna get to that as well. Just, unattractive females is one of my points. Another thing that I don't like and that the internet's been on fire about are the wooden animations. You're going to notice this all the time. There are many animations that are just wooden. The characters feel like they're made out of stick figures or something. I don't know, and their motion and everything is very, very funky. They don't walk normally. They walk like, my character walks like he's got the biggest balls in the universe. He's walking with his legs straight out, opened up, like an idiot, like a crap person. It's kind of funny, but yeah, I don't get it. I don't get why they. I know that this is not easy. Okay, it is really hard to make characters look human and walk in a human manner. Just because we're our structure, we have a lot of straight lines, our legs, our arms, then we have fingers on these, it's difficult to animate all that. I'm sure there's an animator somewhere out there who just thought to himself, I wish people were just some kind of a blob, like a ball, and that's it, nothing else. That would be so easy to animate. You just roll down and that's it. Or a cube, that'd probably be even easier. But I digress. Just my point is that the animations are very choppy most of the time, and it's gonna make stuff look a bit weird. Now, another thing is that I'm not a huge fan of some of the voices here that are picked for some of the characters because they feel a little bit forced. Now, the voice acting in total is very good, but then you have, again, maybe a BioWare thing, or maybe they just wanted to show that people, as they were traveling to a new galaxy, are going to try to take examples of every culture available. So there's, for example, Texan, and the Texan person who I heard in the game sounded very forced to me. She sounded like she's really trying to present herself as that, and this whole Texan dialect just didn't work for me. But this is a very rare occurrence, but I've made it a point to mention all things that I don't like so much, even if they're very minor, so I addressed it here. When we're talking about speech, the lip movement in this game is straight out retarded. Most of the characters are gonna just do a duck face mid-sentence, stretch out their lips, pucker up like they want to kiss you. Nobody talks like that. I do not know why they decided to do that for the human characters. It feels to me like in the previous game, in the previous Mass Effect series, this was done better. So it's a step down. I'm very curious why they would make a step back from this, simply because it worked. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know. They did it this way. People are making fun of them. They saw it and they thought to themselves, man, this is not looking right. But okay, I guess they didn't have much time or something. Another thing that is very strange is that you have a conversation camera. So that means whenever you're addressing someone, the camera is going to turn in a specific way and try to zoom in on the two of you. However, I've noticed that this is character relative. So unless your character is looking straight at them, and even then it doesn't sometimes work, the camera is just going to turn in a weird direction. And this is going to have the effect that you're actually going to be looking at somebody's back, at a random wall, at somebody's ass, and 99% of the time it's not going to be the kind of ass you want to look at. You're never going to see what they intended for you to see. So I honestly don't understand why they did it. I mean it when I say that this happens between 60 and 80% of the time when you talk to characters, unless it's a cinematic where everything is pre-rendered or everything is scripted heavily. So they should have just disabled this and let me just talk to somebody and not zoom in and stuff like that. I'm sure during testing they noticed this. This just doesn't work right. It looks stupid and it looks weird, and in my personal opinion, it should not have been there when it doesn't work well. Another thing now when it comes to the story, and I'm just going to make a story generalization. The story is a bit, cliche. We've all seen it. You got an antagonist, you got the good guys, and you got them trying to deal with this antagonist. And it's again, of course, an alien race. It's logical. I'm not complaining about that. But the things that I'm complaining about is that they really went out of their way with the cliche story. This is gonna be a mini spoiler simply because you will, the stuff that I'll spoil now are things that are available during the very first mission, which is like a tutorial mission, so it's nothing that's gonna shock you. But your characters lose their parents, okay? And I'm not gonna go into details why, etc. But there are some questions left open anyway. But you are an orphan, okay? And your sister is an orphan too, essentially. And that's just so cliche of the way it happens, okay? It's made in a very, oh, I saw that coming from 100 kilometers away. It just didn't touch me. Especially you start off with one parent, and then you start off without a parent at all. They kill off your father pretty soon, and you didn't even have time to get to know him. You didn't even have time to have any kind of attachment to that character before they kill him. So it all feels very, very artificial, and it's just too abrupt. They could have given themselves more time and killed him off much, much later. Would have worked much better, but of course, there's another reason for this. It's simply because they actually wanted your character, whoever you choose to be, whether the female or the male, they wanted your character to be a nobody and suddenly ascend the ranks. So they wanted you to be the hero who became a hero from a zero. They want you to be the total not expected character who just rises to the occasion and stuff. And it's good, but they could have achieved that in a different way. Quite honestly, they could have made the father of the character injured and incapable of fighting, and then, something like that. Just killing him off was a really cheap dick move, in my opinion. And this is seen very often. It's just an instrument they will use very often, but I wanted to address it. So, that's something that I didn't like. Another thing is that you will have an objective, and as always in a Mass Effect game, you actually have to go and do something, and you got two more companions with you at all times. And these companions, they talk to each other, they talk to you, and sometimes you also get information from your ship. And when you have an objective, they keep reminding you of it. So if you have to go and press a console, you're gonna hear, Pathfinder, please press the console. And then not 10 seconds later, you're gonna be like, we should probably press that console. And then again, Pathfinder, please press the console. This doesn't happen too often, but when it happens, it's stupid and shouldn't be there. You have your marker, you've already heard it 5 to 7 seconds ago. It really loops really fast. It's very prevalent in the first missions especially. And it's something that I find is a stupid thing to do. You should know better than that. And they have beta testers. These beta testers should be telling them that. Another thing I hate, and that's essentially a hidden loading screen strategy, I believe, is the fact that if you want to interact with anything, you don't just press the action button, but you get to hold it. And you don't hold it for too long unless it's a bigger loading screen where it gives you a bar that fills up slower. But you get to hold it, and that's just so annoying. Now, at first I thought that this was just so you don't mispress on certain things, like if you got two NPCs next to each other, and you hold, you press the button once and you talk to the wrong NPC, it can be annoying. And, I understand that, especially if you consider Mass Effect as a game that is basically a lot like a freemium game, in the sense that it's made itself very good at wasting your time. You're going to spend so much time doing things you don't want. So much time that is essentially spent grinding. You can avoid it. That's the good thing. You can avoid it, but if you're like me and you see all those markers telling you do this, do that, pick this up, scan this, you're going to want to do it simply because it constantly compels you, and it's annoying to see all these indications. You want to go away, and the best way for them to go away is for you to do what it wants. So, it's not helping with the holding of the button. It feels like a wasted time, and also if you have the case where I told you have two characters next to each other and holding E is supposed to save you, well, after many, many hours of playing the game, you're running towards this character because at some point you don't want to walk anymore. It's too slow. Everything feels too slow, so you're going to run to them. And as you rush, as soon as you see the indication, you're going to hold E. And holding the button doesn't take long. This isn't a very long prompt, thankfully. But then it leads to the same result. Sometimes you'll talk to the wrong person, you'll have to cancel it, etc. So holding E or holding the action button is not a good solution to anything. The only reason they actually did it is simply because that way they can hide a few loading screens instead of you literally just waiting. It feels like you're doing something. You're interacting with a door or with a person or with whatever else. But it's essentially a loading screen. So that's something that annoyed me. Another thing, you become the new Pathfinder. And that happens after your father dies, who is the Pathfinder. But it's really stupid because there's an officer who's higher ranked than you. Your father's something like an assistant. Her name's Cora Harper. And you become the new Pathfinder, although she outranks you. She has seniority. And it's explained later why this happens. But another thing that really bothers me is that at first she doesn't mind at all. That's like the first moments where she finds out, she's absolutely cool with it. Not only that, but she kind of defends you. She's like, oh yeah, you can do it, because of course your character, like in all these games, has no self-confidence whatsoever. And that's also something that I really dislike. The character gets a huge promotion and their first action is to doubt themselves publicly. That's something that just seems so unlikely to me. Just put yourself in that situation. You are just working at a government position. It's an absolute unrealistic example, but I just bear with me. And the president dies, and suddenly people come to you and they're like, "You're the new president." Are you going to really stand there and say, "I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I can do this"? No, you're not. You're gonna be like, "Okay, I'm gonna give it my best. This is the best job in the country, probably the best paid one I can have ever as well." You're not gonna stand and you might doubt yourself, but you're not gonna do it immediately. You're first gonna think, "Yeah, that's pretty cool. I want that job." And then later, when you're alone, you're gonna think to yourself, "What have I done? I've doomed this country." But my point is that you will not publicly and openly doubt yourself in the first moment. Say, "Oh no, I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I can this." And your character does that, and several other characters do that too. And we're talking about them doing this stuff in front of other characters with whom they're not very close yet. So they're just like associates, colleagues. Not only that, but some of them outrank you anyway until that point. But yeah, like I said, Cora is absolutely cool with it at first. She doesn't mind at all, and you become the new boss out of nowhere just because you are the son of the previous guy. And this is not supposed to be that way. Of course, there's more to it, and they explain it, and later Cora starts bitching about it and saying that she should have been and stuff like that. But I don't understand why this moral dilemma was not presented to you at first. It just feels unrealistic for that reason. But okay, let's move on. Another thing that you will have a problem with it in the game, at least that's how it was for me, was that the characters, they kind of look tiny at first. It's really funny to say something like that, but at first the characters, when you walk around, you feel like you are kind of small, and the other guys around you are small. Everyone looks a bit tiny for me. That's how it felt for me. Now, it might not be for everyone. With time, you get used to it. It might be that the camera is a little bit too zoomed out, but I don't think it is. It's probably a combination of things, the lip animation, the walking animation, and all of this stuff combined, creates a feeling of unnatural appearance for the characters. They feel like dolls maybe, and that's why I also have this impression that they feel tiny. But this was something that I got used to during the game. After so many hours, everything is going to look normal to you. But yeah, at first, especially the first few hours, they all looked kind of, smaller than they should be. They're almost like too tiny, like toys, like dolls. I don't know. So that was something that I didn't get. Now, the loading screens that I mentioned, they go into the extreme. Okay, they really go into the extreme, and I want to give you an example here, because if I'm gonna be complaining about anything, it's gonna be about time wasted. Now, this game, first of all, as I've said, will try to waste your time however it can. I believe that they have intentionally sat down and thought, how do we make the players spend as much time in this game so it feels like the game is super long, they get a lot of value. But unfortunately, what they did here is several really bad practices that I will address here. Now, first of all, we have a ton of side quests that are super lame. Side quests that you would find in an MMORPG. Side quests like fetch me this, pick this up, scan this, kill a bunch of these mobs. Just side quests like that. No thought into them, no original ideas. If you think Witcher 3. Now that's how you do side quests. So many interesting side quests with decisions, with interesting dialogue. Here your side quests are super stupid, and they're sometimes really segmented. I'll just give you an example. For example, one of the guys of your crew at some point decides, hey, let's all get together and let's make a movie night. We're gonna watch a nice movie together and everything. That sounds cool. And then he tells you, alright, but we don't have any movies. Can you go to the Citadel, and check in the Nexus if we have any kind of movie? So you're gonna go to the Nexus. What does that mean? For example, you're on your ship. That means first you need to travel to the cluster of planets where the Nexus is. That's a loading screen. Then you need to get to the Nexus. That's a loading screen. Then you get from the Nexus docks to the Nexus part that is responsible for this. That's a loading screen. you interact with a console, you go back to the docks, that's a loading screen, you go back on your ship, that's another loading screen. And this, friends, is just the first part of a quest that, without exaggeration, takes, I believe, and not, don't quote me on this, but between 8 and 12 steps, okay? So it's gonna be like 12 quests like that are all connected until actual movie night happens. And this was a short example, there were some of them which are much, much longer with more loading screens. Now, another thing is, one of the planets, and you'll go from planet to planet, one of the planets you will be visiting is called Kadara, and that planet is, imagine like basically like a prison planet, okay? All the people who are not wanted and other, inhabitants of the Nexus who got kicked out because of some rebellion and stuff. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Don't want to spoil part of the story, although this is a very unimportant part, but I try to keep it spoiler free as much as possible. So you're gonna go to Kadara, and in this planet is where all the scum is. So it makes sense that most of the quests with problems are gonna lead you to this planet. It makes sense because most of the scum is there. 90% of the idiots are there, and unfortunately, this is the one planet that has additional loading screens hidden. What do I mean by that? Well, when you land on that planet, you actually appear again on some kind of docks. Usually when you land on a foreign planet, you literally appear on the planet and you can start immediately exploring the whole place, okay? And you have some fast travel, but there are specific points throughout the map, and they're usually never too close to your objectives. But on this particular planet, you appear on a dock, on the docks where you land, in this city in Kadara where the idiots have made kind of a city. And you can either go inside the city, which is a loading screen, it's a hidden one in front of a door where you need to hold the action button for a fairly long time, so it's not like a normal door that opens fairly fast. This one takes a while for the thing to fill up for some reason. Or you can go to the slums and then onto the planet, which is a completely normal loading screen where you wait for the actual planet to boot up. So any quest you do, okay, I'm exaggerating any quest, but 70% of your side quest at some point, once you have unlocked this place, and you still have a lot of side quests, trust me, are gonna take you there at some point. Not in the first step usually, but they're gonna be taking you there. So whenever you see Kadara, if you're like me, you're gonna shake your head and swear so loud that it's gonna be something to worry about when it comes to your neighbors, because you always have to go and get several loading screens. Just an example, if I need to go to a specific point, I do a quest on another planet, and then suddenly my next step is go and find out what happened. And this often happens, okay? The quest will oftentimes send you throughout different places, and unfortunately you have this map of the galaxy, and this is stuff that was also kind of present in the previous series. It's actually been improved slightly, but it's still very bad. You have your map of the whole galaxy, and you have to scan planets. And you don't have to do it, but you get additional experience for doing it. You get information, you get resources. And so you're going to go on that map, and some quests require it from you to find places by scanning, galaxies. And between each planet and between each cluster, of course, as well, you have a loading screen. Now that loading screen is hidden behind a very interesting and nicely made panoramic view of the galaxy. You see kind of how the galaxy looks from afar, and then if you choose the specific cluster, it's gonna look like you're traveling through faster than light, and then you reach the cluster and then you pick a planet, and it's gonna look like you're zooming in on the planet. So it's made very cinematic and interesting, but trust me, once you've seen it 2 or 3 times, you do not want to see this anymore. It takes so long, and there's no real gameplay in it. You're essentially waiting for long loading screens and looking at animations of planets. I honestly think that they could have done this differently or completely omitted it. I don't know why this is a thing. It wastes so much time, and like I said, a quest will tell you scan a few planets to find this, and then it's gonna tell you, all right, you figured things out. For example, a quest with satellites, so it's gonna say, oh, you figured it out. The person you need to hunt down is somewhere on Kadara in a cave, and you're like, oh my god, Kadara, I gotta go there again. So you get out of your cluster and you get onto the cluster where Kadara is, because it's never on the same cluster. Then you wait for a loading screen. Then you see the planet Kadara. You want to get to the planet. You wait for a loading screen. Then you want to get into the docks of Kadara. You wait for a loading screen. Then from the docks you need to get on planet side, so you wait for another loading screen. Then once you are there, you see that this cave we spoke about, and this is a real example, is pretty far. So if you want to get there much faster, you're going to fast travel to another location and then drive to the cave. So that's another loading screen for you. And then you finally get to drive and play somewhat until you reach it, just to hear some asshole tell you, oh, alright, you caught me, I give up. And at best, because usually you don't get even that much, but at best, on these side quests, you're just gonna kick some ass of somebody and that'll be it. You kill everyone. Or, you get to decide if you're gonna let him go or if you're gonna arrest him, for example. So it's not worth it at all from my perspective, but the game is really, really good at wasting your time, and at the same time really bad because it's not fun at these times. So if you're like me and you want to do all the quests, you're gonna hate it. There are intentionally some side quests that are not even indicated on your map. So you just gotta travel throughout the whole map and find them or open a guide. And I'm not ashamed to say that for these really bad side quests that give you nothing, you get very little experience for them. You get absolutely no story advancement really, unless you want to sit down and interpret things. For example, where you had to on one of the planets you have to find ruined parts of X artifacts that they don't have anymore. You just go and collect them. That's it. You find them randomly scattered throughout the map and you pick them up. That's it. And you get experience after you've picked up 6, I think it was. So there are such quests, and there are a lot of these quests. Or when you walk around through Eos, that's another planet, where you just find dead bodies of people who were there before you, the first attempts for a colony, and you have to scan them so that the people know who died, and that's it. 6 people at random spread out throughout the map. So lots of these time wasters, and also the game has become way too complex. You have upgrades, crafting, research and developing is basically crafting. You get upgrades for your car, you get upgrades for your equipment. Your equipment has different levels of upgrading, you can research more and more. And then once you get to a certain level, you get to research advanced equipment. You got a million things to sell and a million things to buy. It's just so much stuff. I'm not even going to count it out. I'm just going to give you an example. At some point, you're so overwhelmed with this. You get special AVP points, I think they were, when you free certain parts of planets and make them habitable and then establish a settlement, because there's a percentage for each planet and you get experience for that too. And these points you use for special research bonuses as well. It's just crazy. It's just so much that I actually, for example, did not know that I can upgrade my vehicle until like 90% of the game. I kid you not. I thought the upgrades can be bought from a store that sells vehicle related stuff at the Nexus. Turns out I could actually research them. I just didn't notice it. I had missed it and I just assumed you can't upgrade the vehicle. So I went 90% of the game without even upgrading the vehicle. It worked, but it was a pain in the ass, trust me. It gets much better once you upgrade it. And you also can change its color and stuff, but I figured that one out early because I could buy that from the store, but there were no mods for sale in that store, just much later. So that's something that really pissed me off. Now, conversation options are often unclear, and I'll just give you examples. Oftentimes the conversation option will tell you something, and you will think that your character is gonna act in a certain way, but then unfortunately he says something completely different, and oftentimes actually says the opposite of it. And your character is already too nice of a guy. That's something I really don't like. That's why I like Shepard more, because you can dare play as a renegade and Shepard becomes a badass asshole and doesn't take shit from nobody. This character has his badass moments where you can act a bit renegadish. You get a button prompt in the same way again to do something, to react. But those decisions aren't divided like Renegade and Paragon like in the past, and your character is never going to actually be intentionally badass so much. It's just gonna be always kind of a nice guy, very respectful, even towards the bad guys. I remember I think once or twice did he swear throughout the whole game, and I don't want to sound a person who swears all the time, but there were times where a swear was totally appropriate, and you even got such options, like your option says "those bastards," and he says, "I can't believe they did this." He doesn't even say the word bastard. Your voice option says it, but he doesn't say it. So that's something that I was missing, and I found that could have been better. the game feels less like a Mass Effect game when compared to the previous games, and more like Dragon Age Inquisition in a way. The way the maps are, the way you traverse through them, you have these long paths from A to B. Oftentimes on these long paths you have nothing, or you have these very random tiny clusters of enemies that you can just stop and kill, and maybe there's something quest related there, maybe not. That's something that I really hate. Do not make a world unpopulated, or do not make a world boring. And that is something that was achieved here. And unfortunately, they have made the worlds with a lot of high points, where you need to either drive around like a crazy person, or of course every person who's playing RPG is gonna tell you you can mountain goat. You know, mountain goat as in pretend to be a mountain goat and try to climb the mountain to shorten the way. And sometimes you will lose more time trying to do this than if you were driving around. But people will keep trying to do this. And I don't see why your car has to be so complicated. First of all, the car has 6 tires and you have 2 modes of driving. 6-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. One of the drive types is very fast, but unfortunately cannot climb anything that goes high. You know, anything above 30 degrees, the car stops. So you gotta switch to the other mode, which is much slower, but of course can climb much higher inclines, so it's better. I don't see why they had to do this. I mean, you get used to it and it's not a big problem, but it is very annoying for me. I would have preferred if this was not available, was done better. But for me, I was not very happy with that. And also, we're supposed to be so far in the future. We have all kinds of crazy technology. We have a super smart AI. We have translators that translate as you speak, and you don't even need to hear the original voice and stuff. And then we have a vehicle which can't even climb at a 90 degrees or whatever. And I mean, they could have thought of a million ways to do it, to create its own gravitational field everywhere so it sticks to the wall. You know, they could have given me something that can simply fly to a certain height. They could have solved this. But this would have been only the case if they actually wanted you to transport yourself from A to B fast. And let's not forget, that's not what they were going for. They wanted you to spend more time. And I gotta say, we as consumers are partially responsible for this. Oftentimes people will judge a game by its length. And if you finish an RPG too fast, people often complain and say this was too short, it was not worth my money. But this is not how you pad an RPG properly. This is not how you do it. Again, look at The Witcher. It had bullshit things, but they just the things that were good were so much and so often that it was just interesting until the end. Things like Gwent and stuff. So they could have thought of something here. In one of the missions, a character actually tells me, I want to teach you a Krogan game. It's a children's board game, and it's called, I forgot, there was some, I think, Fire Blasting Treasures of Doom or something like that. In any case, you go to him, and he's like, okay, we're just waiting for my granddaughter and her boyfriend, and we're gonna play the 4 of us. And I think to myself, oh cool, this is gonna be like an interesting mini game or something. And he tells you just to wait, and the animation, you know, the cinematic stops. And I'm just sitting there, my quest disappeared, it's marked as complete, that's it, it's done. I never played. The game didn't even bother to simulate it in any way or something like that. So, you know, they could have done more there. I don't know why they just stopped it abruptly. It seemed like a fun quest. Another thing is, you cannot actually jump normally. You can vault over things, and you have your boost. And now the boost when you're on planets and stuff, when you're wearing a spacesuit, is a lot of fun. It has like a mini cooldown which you will barely notice. It's more like just from animation to animation. And while you can boost, you know, upwards and forward, it doesn't take any energy. It doesn't deplete. You know, that's great. The vehicle's turbo depletes, but the boost on your suit doesn't. But I still miss being able to jump normally for several reasons. Oftentimes you want to jump over a ledge, and you will not be able to do it when you're not wearing a suit. You gotta vault over it, and you can't vault over everything. So if you're not wearing the spacesuit, your mobility is extremely limited. And they could have let me jump. I don't see why not. Space looks really nice. It looks really nice, but it is essentially repetitive. And this is something that you might, you know, criticize me for saying. How is space supposed to be interesting? I agree with you. They could have maybe made a space battle or something. I feel like there was wasted potential here. And one I think just one mission, the gravity is actually partially stopped, and on one small asteroid, I would say they call it a planet, but it's not really. The gravity is much lower, but then you can't leave your vehicle at all. But I applaud them for trying something there. I found it very interesting. They should have tried more. They should have worked with that, and they didn't. So that's something that they gotta work on. There's a lot of potential lost there, definitely. Now, another thing that I hate about BioWare, I've mentioned in the past, is that they're so damn PC. They're so politically correct that they will shove everything down your throat. The characters are gonna behave in a way that is sometimes unrealistic. They're gonna try to portray real life. I'm gonna say problems, although to each his own. For example, homosexuality. Now, since the dawn of time, BioWare games have offered gay options. And don't get me wrong, let the gays have their fun too. They're gay teenagers, I guess, who also want to have sex scenes. I'm cool with that. However, this should be something that you define at the beginning of the game. What I mean is, if as a straight guy, I'm a straight guy, I don't want to have gay prompts. This ruins the game for me because I have to always be careful. I'll give you an example. I'm talking to a character, and a character offers me to go drink beer with him. And if there's a gay option where I accept this. So if I wanna, I can't be a friend with him. I gotta be really careful when I talk to him, or I might end up doing something gay, and I don't want my character to be gay. For me, being gay is not something that I want to see my character do. It doesn't attract me at all. And unfortunately, this is very often. Most of the, male characters you meet will offer gay options in conversations, especially in your ship. And these conversation options never disappear. So if you just click one option after the other, you really gotta pay attention that there's not a heart somewhere next to it, because you might say something gay. And they should have just made it. Either they ask you at the beginning, or you can disable it in the options. It's not that hard. It's not that hard, and I can just talk freely to everyone without having to worry that I might say something. I'll give you another example that's really great. You meet this one guy in this place that's called Kadara, and he's helping you. He's very useful, but he has this Spanish Antonio Banderas kind of voice and accent. So I don't want to say anything bad about it, but just out of from cliche reasons in movies and stuff, these guys are often gay. Of course, this guy, particularly in the game, is also gay. And at one point, he asked me to go to a party to do some reconnaissance and whatnot. He's like, "This is a party made by someone who, I'm not gonna spoil things, but this person is relevant, and you want to investigate this person. You want to find more about them." And he tells you want to be my +1 for the party. And I've already seen that he has several gay options, so I'm very careful with this guy. I don't want to be gay with him or with anyone in the game. And he asked me to be his +1. Now, if you don't know what that means, usually that means that you want to be my second person who comes with me, but usually you call in like a girl with you, someone to accompany you. That's what +1 stands for, usually. Now, there are exceptions. But again, I was so unsure, and for a while I fought to decline it. I know I stood there, and you have just the option to say yes or no. And I wondered to myself, I think, I don't know if I want to do this, And then I realized that this is probably story related. If I say no out of fear of being gay, I'm actually going to miss out some story stuff. Very possibly. And I said yeah, and I was right, it's not gay. But I think there were some gay connotations to it. I'm not certain, because at the party you can drink. And if you drink the alcohol they give you, your character then dances, he gets inebriated and dances like in the animation that I think the females only dance. Because nowhere else does he dance like that. He suddenly dances, touches himself. It's extremely gay and disturbing. I did not like it. So, but they should make it possible to disable this stuff. Another thing that I hate about their PC bullshit is Asari are a race of females. They're kind of blue colored, and they have these heads that look like, they have kind of tentacles on their heads instead of hair. But they look very interesting, and they look like human beings, so it's pretty acceptable, their appearance. You can actually romance one Asari, or I think multiple ones actually. And at one point you hear one of the alien races, and the Asari are all female, okay? All of them are chicks, they don't have dudes. So I hear one alien asking an Asari ambassador, I think, about pronouns. He's like, well, is it okay if I talk to you in a she? And then she says, well, I personally don't mind that, but there's some of us who want to be addressed as he or it. So this is the PC bullshit you hear nowadays in the United States specifically, and they're just using this moment to give us more of this in the game. And I mean, I've seen enough on the internet already of it. They really don't need to put this nonsense in here, especially because it's a female character. It looks like a female. They don't even have males, so there's not even, you can't have a gender identity disorder if you literally have only one gender. So there's no way for you to be confused as to what you identify. There's only one kind. They have no men. They can't even say, oh, I think I'm a man, or I think I'm a horse. They are just this. They're just chicks, all of them. But okay, enough ranting about that. You get my point. Too much PC bullshit in the game. You gotta be careful with the gay options, unfortunately. And let's talk about another huge problem that the game has, and that's bugs. This game loves its bugs. There are so many. Luckily, there are no real game-breaking bugs that will make you have to start the game anew or something, but there are some minor ones. One bug, while I was at the star map, for some reason, the star map kind of froze. The planets became invisible. I couldn't do anything, so I had to restart the whole game. There was no way out of it. But I've dropped through the map a few times, but that was okay as well because I was close to a respawn point, so I could just teleport there with fast travel. I didn't even die. You have so many graphical glitches that, I've shown you some and I'm gonna show you some, but there are a lot of them. Animations, graphical glitches. There's a type of armor that for some reason the NPCs, when they use this armor, I thought they had only one arm for some reason, but the other arm is twisted in a way that it goes inside the body. When they hold out their guns, the other arm stretches out as well, and you can see that it's twisted upside down somehow and holding the gun in a very weird way. Well, it's not even holding it, it's tickling it at the top. It's very funny. But you have so many glitches and bugs. But again, it's nothing that will destroy the game for you, so I'm willing to forgive it. They need to work on that though. It's not even that open worldish, this game. The maps are, they're not too small. They're big, but they're not that big. I've seen much bigger maps. I just played recently Watch Dogs 2. The map is much bigger than any of the individual maps you get here. You get so much going on there, and still, there are barely any bugs, especially not comparing to this. This is such a buggy game. And the thing is about the different objectives on the map that I mentioned is that they are boring and repetitive. So that's another thing I need to take out specifically. The different things on the map that happen are absolute bullshit. It's all about wasting your time, really. Now you get these things that are called vaults, and in order to enter a vault, you need to find first these really big alien structures that you activate, and in order to activate them, and sometimes inside the vaults as well, you need to play a game that is basically Sudoku but with alien symbols. It's not quite as bad as it sounds, but it gets, if you don't like these kind of puzzles, and I really hate them, it's yet again a way of wasting your time, making everything annoying. I hate it. I did not like it. I used a guide for them. The internet's full with them. Just use a guide if you're like me. Don't bother with this bullshit. And unfortunately, the vaults themselves become also boring, extremely similar. They're interesting and different, but yet again, somehow always the same kind of enemies, the same kind of layouts, the same kind of elevators in there. Just, and you're gonna do quite a few of them, so it's boring. It gets really repetitive. That's the problem this game has. Repetitiveness is its real issue. Now, I mentioned the PC bullshit. Interesting dilemma. So I'm gonna just go on with the good stuff. But before I do, one last thing that is, it's not really that bad, but it's bad when compared to the previous games, and that's the music. The audio in this game is just the music and the songs, the ambient songs and everything are nowhere near the quality of the previous Mass Effect games. I don't know why, maybe they have a different composer, I haven't checked. But the previous Mass Effect games were songs and melodies that I actually enjoy listening to this day. A few of them are really awesome, really epic. They make you feel like stuff is gonna happen. And in this game, the music isn't particularly bad, but it is just, not good. That's the difference. I remember the songs in the discos of Mass Effect. Callista was one of the songs, for example. Finish It All Once and For All is another song. I even remember them by name because I've listened to them so many times. Here, the music is fairly boring. I will try to check out the soundtrack, but nothing memorable from playing the game so far. And after bitching for so long about the game, you'd probably think that I hate it, but I don't. Now I'm gonna talk about the positive sides. There are far less, but they outweigh the negative sides for me still. So one of the things that I really loved is the fact that in order to travel to this new galaxy, to Andromeda, everyone had to be frozen in cryosleep for 600 years. And that's just, from a personal perspective, such an interesting problem, because just imagine it, and not everyone traveled with their loved ones and stuff. So imagine you leave your parents, a sister, a brother, you travel 600 years while sleeping, so for you this feels like you close your eyes, you open them like a second. While we sleep, we don't notice time. And as soon as you arrive, everyone you have known has been dead for many generations already. Actually, there might be people on the other side of the universe who still are related to you and are 6 generations later. Everyone's already dead. For you, it feels like you fell asleep, you woke up, and everyone's gone forever. So that is such an interesting thing for me personally. I really love that, and it makes sense, that they have to travel to another galaxy. So that makes perfect sense for me. Another thing that I really loved is the fact that while the lip movement looks idiotic on on characters that look human, for the aliens it actually makes sense. Krogans and stuff. The aliens, the less human they look, the weird lip movement looks more natural for them, because of course I don't have expectations maybe how aliens should talk, since I've never seen one. But I thought it looks good for them. It just looks really bad for human characters and human NPCs. And there are lots of conversations that explain the story better. That's something typical of Mass Effect. Lots of voiced conversations. Of course, there's a lot of stuff to read. It gets boring reading stuff. I gotta say, you're playing a game, and the game that wastes your time so much, you don't want to invest more time into reading. So most of it, I'll admit, I have not read. But I've heard pretty much everything any character has to say. Maybe missed a few minor things, but most of the things I've heard, and I've enjoyed it a lot. It explains the story well. I love the aliens the way they looked in the past, and they still look really cool and interesting. So I've always thought that the Mass Effect aliens look very interesting. The new alien races as well. I like that there are cameos to previous games. They talk about Commander Shepard briefly. They talk about previous characters somewhat. You have Avina, which is a AI information kiosk. It's available on the Nexus again, even has the same name. So you have small things, but it's like a wink to players who have played the previous games. I appreciate that. I'm a simple man when it comes to these things. I like them. I already mentioned the voice acting is great. The visuals in the game are awesome. The game just looks really well, and it's very well optimized. Unfortunately, it's another console port, so using your mouse is sometimes less effective than using the directional buttons on your keyboard and stuff. Is just made for consoles. Your menus don't feel right. The navigation through menus. This is the console sickness with which we deal in pretty much every game nowadays. But other than that, the game actually looks great. It's very well optimized, so it runs really well. It runs with a high frame rate. I barely had any place where I felt that the frame rate is dropping, so that's something that I really welcome. Games should be optimized well before sold. So although it has many bugs and stuff, I would always take the bugs if I have a good optimization. Much better for me. The story itself, I mentioned that it's cliche, but later on it gets more interesting. And all in all, I enjoyed it, and as I have enjoyed the game as well. And the story obviously is not going to reach its full conclusion. This is going to be a series yet again. The way the game is designed clearly points in that direction. But I enjoyed it even now, although it still feels incomplete and many questions are not answered. And a lot of potential has not been used here. So I'm disappointed about that. But I still liked it, like I said. The fact that this time you get a choice between 2 different characters, and not just one character who's supposed to be available in a male and in a female. Commander Shepard, whose first name is supposed to be John. It's kind of hard to find nowadays, but there are wikis who speak about this. So John Shepard was a man. There was a female version, what broadly known as FemShep, and that version was just, I found it really attractive and stupid. She was basically a bulldyke, talking like a man, behaving like a man, but being a woman. She was trying to be hardcore and stuff. Personally, that doesn't appeal to me at all. I don't find a strong female character to be a character who behaves like a man. I have a different opinion of a strong female character. If you want to see a strong female character, play the new Tomb Raider games. Lara Croft, that's a perfect example for a strong female character. She's still feminine, she does not behave like a man, and she's still very strong, makes a great impression. Female Shepard was bullshit, and they did it out of necessity. And Shepard never had a first name officially in the game mentioned because you had exactly this case where they didn't know it's going to be a man, it's going to be a woman, and stuff like that. Here you have the two characters, and if you don't change their names, people are going to call you often by your first name, which I find very nice. I like that they're related, they're twins, and you have them interacting together and between each other in the game as well. And that just appeals to me. It's done very well. I think that it was a great choice to do that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. Another thing that I really love is that there's no drop damage, so if you can jump from pretty much as high as you want, you're not gonna get injured from that. That is fucking awesome. And last but not least, the vehicles in this game, the ships, your car that you drive around, everything looks really cool. So in conclusion, I loved the game. I can definitely recommend it to everyone. But bear in mind that if you don't like wasting your time, you better be prepared to accept having lots of indications on your map, on your galaxy screen, everywhere that tell you click me, do this. But if you try to do it, there's going to be a loading screen behind it, oftentimes several loading screens. So that's the sickness of the game. They could have made it better. The loading screens usually aren't very long, but there's just so many of them. It's so annoying. But still, it's an awesome game. I loved it. I enjoyed every moment of it, except these times when I hated the loading screens. But it's difficult to swallow, but it's a good game altogether, and everyone should give it a chance. I hope that with the next stages of the game, where we will see maybe nice DLCs, and of course, we'll also get to see a second, maybe even a third part, might be a trilogy again. I hope that they will improve it as they have with the previous games. And I see a bright future for this genre. I think the whole series is very cool, and this game generally is a worthy successor to the previous Mass Effect games. Thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't sound like I was too angry at the game. I'm trying to be critical and honest with it, so of course I will invest a lot of time talking about the negative sides. Be sure to check out my other videos. There's some of them that are surely pretty good, and some of them maybe not as good for everyone, but I'm sure you'll find something you like. Thank you for watching, and have a great evening.